Well, this week we're taking a week off. We're taking a deep dive into our sideshow segment called Rock and Roll Detention. And tonight we have Bill the Rager and Metal Walt. We're getting together and we're talking about those chance run-ins with rock stars or celebrities or just cool, get-togethers with these idols, if you will. We all have them. We've all been following these guys for years, so this is bound to be a fun one. I'm going to kick things off right from the beginning with this is a band. They're from Miami, Florida. In about 2012, they were kids. It was a band called Black Tide. And we always heard them on Sirius Radio, and they had a cover of Metallica's Hit the Lights. And at the time, my two lower sons and I, we would drive around in my car, and I had the in-dash Sirius satellite radio receiver, and you're able to program bands. You could program up to 30 bands. So whenever you heard that little beep, beep, me and Danny and Tommy would look at the receiver, and it was a delay of like 3 or 4 seconds. And then it would show the band. And so Black Tide, and we were always digging their cover of Metallica's. So they announced a show at the ballroom, the ballroom in Buffalo, and me and the boys went. And this venue, Bill, you could back me up on this. It's like a 800 cap room, but it has really cool, like a balcony, but then you could stand and watch the band, but each level is elevated. So when I have, a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old with me, they had a great time. But the cool part of all this was after the show, we were able to meet the whole band, and they're taking pictures with my sons, Danny and Tommy. And we got pictures and we're signing autographs. And I'm going to show it right now. You could see this picture. This was a picture of all of us meeting the band, Gabriel and these kids. And they're like 18, 19 at the time. And the looks you could see on here of my two sons, they're like, oh my God, Dad, this is so cool, meeting rock stars. And even though I met rock stars before, that was the first time that they had a chance to see someone. So, Metal Walt, how you doing, buddy? You got a whole list of stuff by the looks of your backdrop. What do you got to share with us tonight?
Oh, listen, I say there's planned run-ins, and then there's unplanned run-ins. So I will say what the three of us are going to talk about tonight. This should not have anything to do with conversations we're having when we interview an artist for, a promotional product that ends up coming out as an episode, right? Because that would be like cheating, right? And granted, there's been times we've stayed on an extra couple of minutes either before or after the show, and maybe it's a little more informal. But I say those things don't count, right? Now, where they count, though, is if we did make a connection and, 6 months down the line, we're at a show, and this has happened to us, John, where because of the show, we've now hung out with this artist. That's a different story. But, I like to go back to the late 80s, early 90s when I first started loving this music. And, I have this category of, I call it like the shitting a brick Starstruck category, where it's like, you go into a mall to get your cassette signed. And in this case, there was 2 incidents. There was Queensryche on Operation Mindcrime, and Vixen on whatever the album was that came out in 89 or 88. But it was like you go there, this is very formal, yet you get up to the table and you don't know what to say. So you probably say something stupid, And I remember just going up there and, in awe of Queensryche, and Jeff Tate's got his glasses on, but I felt like a heel because I just got my autograph and thanked him. It was like, oh, you guys are holier than thou. And it's like, you think about it 40 years later, it's so stupid. But as time went on, we all get more comfortable. We get older. I remember, meeting Billy Sheehan outside a tour bus on the Mr. Big debut tour in 1980 time in Jersey. And then when I went to college in Montclair State, Bad English played a concert there, and my college fraternity, TKE, we were the unofficial road crew, the stage crew. So we got to help the bands unload the gear, run the wires. And I remember, facing Neil Schon directly having a conversation with him with my letters on, shaking his hand. And here he is thanking me for, hey, I really appreciate you dedicating your time to do this stuff. So, those are the kind of funny things that happened initially. But then as time goes on, bigger things, weirder things happen for me. And then you get more comfortable because you're in your 40s or 50s and you're like, these guys are just like guys like anybody else,
Hey, wait a second. So your fraternity was the local stagehands that helped set up?
Yes.
Did
Yes.
who else did you meet? Was there any cool bands?
Well, no, it was just that one concert, Bad English, and I think it was Bad English and Soraya. Yeah, from what I recall, and I may have it mixed up, but Brian Wheat was dating Sandy Soraya. So he was hanging around the corridors of the hall. But I got a photo of me with Neil Schon that I'll show here in a minute. It was just cool. It was definitely cool. I remember what the hell's the singer of Bad English again? Why am I drawing a blank? Uh John Waite. John Waite. He was just like a rock star at the time. He had the big hair and the makeup on. And he's coming out special, independent of the band. But that was just unique. Just unique at the time and different. So that was like kind of my first brush-ins, and then it would just go from there, in a sense.
Brian Weed ended up marrying Sandy Soraya.
Yeah,
that was his first wife, and so
yeah.
Bill, you were really big into Bad English, huh? And John Waite, you had posters. What do you got?
Yeah, actually, I like the Babies. I liked his first band, the Babies. They had some good tunes. But anyway, my first brush with rock stardom was with you at the Rochester War Memorial in 1982. We went to go see Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. And I don't remember how you and I were like behind the War Memorial. We're walking along, and all of a sudden we're like, dude, is that Clive Burr?
Yeah.
And I think you said it. You're like, dude, is that Clive Burr? And I was like, yeah, totally. So we walk up to him, and he's smoking a cigarette or something. I remember he had like tight jeans on, like high-heeled boots.
Well, he had the long fur jacket on, and he had the girls with him.
That's right.
Well, you know what it is. We would go to shows, and Walt, maybe you could attest to this. The diesel smell of the trucks would always attract you. And we went to the back of the War Memorial, and our Rochester War Memorial, it's, a hockey arena, 15,000 seater, but that's where we went after the show. We're young. We're trying to think, oh, maybe we'll see someone. And we did. But Maiden was young at the time. They were Number of the Beast. But yeah, Bill, that's a good one. What else do you have, Bill? You probably have another cool chestnut in your vault.
Well, and you were also there for this one too. If you remember, in 1984, all of a sudden it gets announced that Slayer's going to be at the House Guitars doing an autograph session. So we're like, oh, sick, dude, we got to go. Yeah. So we go there, and this is, I think it was like November '84. So they'd only been around for about a year, and my dumbass, I freaking put the makeup on like they had on the first album. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember this,
dude. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so didn't Kerry King get all pissed
around
off?
My eyes.
Was it Kerry King that got pissed off?
Yeah. So we get there, and he's the first one that we see. He's just kind of standing there like in the doorway. We're like, dude, what's up? And he looks at me, up and down, and he's like, yeah, we don't do that anymore.
Now, what was the deal with that? They were in Utica doing pre-production for Hell Awaits?
No, what happened was they were on tour.
Right?
And they did a show in Albany, and only like 20 people showed up. And then they had a show booked in Syracuse, and they sold like maybe 10 tickets. So they canceled the show and went to the House Guitars instead. And we're both like, why the hell weren't you playing in Rochester? The place would have been packed. And he was like, I don't know. We don't know. We don't know nothing about nothing. But yeah, they were driving around in a Camaro.
I think they stayed with the Cranker from Metallic Overdrive at that.
Yes.
I
think they did an interview with him too.
Yeah, over at Metallic Overdrive. throughout this show, you're going to probably hear once or twice we mentioned the House of Guitars up here in Rochester. It's a world famous 3-story guitar record store. It's been around for years. And whenever the bands come through town, they go there for a card show or, an album signing. And in many cases, they buy instruments. Metallica on the Black Tour, they were playing Darien Lake. They came back to Rochester and dropped $75K in guitars and stuff. So, they're well, the quick story, when they were here in Rochester recording the first album, they went to the House of Guitars and, they're dirt broke. And the owner, Armin how do you pronounce his last name? Armin, the three brothers. Well, he has a weird German name. Well, they hooked Metallica up with tons of shirts and everything. And at the time, Metallica had nothing. And they said, when we come back, next time we're in town, we'll pay it back. And they did. And so 83 to 92, now they're millionaires, and they came and they dropped all that money. There's a story online. You could go online and find that story. But I have a House of Guitars run in. It was 1983. August 1983, and I was at the House of Guitars. I rode my bike of 10 miles away because I couldn't drive. Rode my bike there, and
that's a dangerous ride too.
Yeah, I thought I was buying Aerosmith "Rock in a Hard Place," but maybe not. But anyways, so I'm there buying some music, and at the time I didn't know it, but Motorhead was doing an in-store, and in 1983, I'm like 14, 15 years old. So I go up there and I met Lemmy. He's smoking a cigarette and he's like, "Going to the show today, mate?" And I'm like, "No, I can't. I can't go into a bar." And so he signed my Marlboro cigarette pack, which I still have. I'll try digging that out. And then he signed a flyer for Another Perfect Day, and it was the tour with Brian Robertson. But they played the Penny Arcade that night, and they've been back. They came back, every couple years. Played various venues. But I remember fucking Lemmy. It was August, and I saw those Daisy Dukes up close. Remember I used to wear those Daisy Duke shorts and in that mall. But yeah, just the good times with Lemmy. So, well, what do you got? You got a new one?
You got to find that cigarette pack, John. I want to see that.
Yeah.
You got to find that cigarette pack. It's legendary. Legendary. I got to see this thing.
Yeah.
So, I've had a lot of experiences because, as you guys know, I go to a shit ton of concerts, and I've had some experiences overseas seeing some things. But there's a couple funny things that come to mind. Like I remember, talking about like the House of Guitars. You remember when the bands would do the in-stores, they would sign the CDs, as we said. Well, I remember when Fight came through for the War Words album. I'm up at the table at the local store getting it signed. And at the time, it felt cool to have an answering machine personalized by Rob Halford. So I remember taking my tape recorder and I stuck it over there and I said, "Rob, can you do an answering machine message for me?" So he does it, "This is Rob Halford of Fight. Nobody's here right now, so leave a scream at the beep and we'll get back to you." So, of course, I was living at home, and I put that on my household answering machine. And I never forget, my late Uncle Fran would call my mom and dad and say, "What is this machine thing? There's a British guy on here. What the hell is this crap? Take this off." And it was just like, we left it on for a long time, though. But it was my parents' house,
Awesome.
So, and that was like one of many sort of run-ins with the whole Rob Halford or Halford camp. And I was also thinking that Metal Forever Mark Washoe, he knows the story well. He's really good friends with Metal Mike. So when Halford came out with the Resurrection album, Rob is taking Metal Mike out on the tours, and Metal Mike's from my neck of the woods in Jersey. And really, just by circumstance, I happened to run into him on several occasions. One time it was at a Bed Bath & Beyond. I'm hanging out with him with Mark, and then I'll never forget this. At the time, I worked for a Japanese company. I went on a business trip to Japan, to Osaka, and Halford happened to be playing there with Children of Bodom. So I go see the show. with an American who says, well, there's this gas lamp district in Japan where everybody goes to, that's where all the Americans go to hang out and drink afterwards. So we picked this one bar. And sure enough, who comes in at like 1 a.m? The Halford band without Rob. And like of the 50 bars that are on this block, we're in the same one. And I remember this guy, Mike, looking at me like, is this guy like stalking me or something? He's like, and I was like, hey, Mike, and I'm telling him the story. And he's like, okay. And then years later, when I got a little more acquainted with him through Mark, he was like, Walt, I thought you were a fucking weirdo, dude. He's like, all of a sudden you're popping up at all these places.
It's just you told me that story, and I always thought it was I could visualize it. Dude, what are you doing here? That's good stuff.
And then, of course, there's the more recent Rob Halford story from about 4 years ago where, I'm going to see him up in Albany, and I just happen to walk in to the hockey arena because it's like 2 hours before showtime and the doors are open. So I walk into the belly through the cooking area. Next thing you know, the doors are there for the dressing room. So I'm in the hallway, the band's warming up, and I see Rob over there. So I politely just say hi and ask for a quick picture. I was in and out in 30 seconds. Met the metal god, saw all his, garments and robes and his jackets, battle jacket up there. I'm like, I was definitely not supposed to be here, but I was, and nobody stopped me. So how fucking cool is that?
Okay, well, here, I got one. Megadeth, 1998. They're playing a small venue up in Rochester. At the time, I was working as a courier. And so I had a courier uniform, and, when you deliver something, you write out a little bill of landing and everything. And I was going to the show that night, but I didn't have a ticket yet. No biggie. And I'm like, fuck. I thought I got all creative. So I kept my uniform on, got out of work, kept my uniform on, went to the store, bought a couple bags of ice, went to the back door and said, ice delivery for catering. And so, no one knew any different. They just let me in. I walked in, put the ice down, and walked into the venue. That was the tour. It was a Megadeth. I think Cold Chamber played with them and another band. It was like 98, but it was a sick show. So we did that. And back in the day, Bill, you can attest to this. I never did it, but when we were kids, we'd go to the shows at the Rochester War Memorial, and they're all general admission. And so sometimes when these shows sold out, you would just go through the turnstile and grease the dude, the old guy with a 20, and he would let you in. It was like, all that. And I never did that. Back when you're little.
I never tried it either.
That's ballsy. But we always heard rumors like after the fact. It's like, oh, did you hear fucking so-and-so didn't have a ticket and gave the guy 20? And they were like legends and shit. It was like, that was awesome stuff. Oh,
Ron,
God.
I want to piggyback off your story because number one, that's fantastic. You're a disciple of Metal Walt now. If you can pull that off, I want to see you do that in 2025.
Yeah,
maybe you could use the Mr. V's thing and slowly work your way through the back. But anyway, along the lines of that, I was on a guy's trip to Europe. We did 3 weeks in backpacking through Europe in 1995. We purposely planned one concert. So we planned our whole trip and said, okay, we're going to go see Black Sabbath on the Forbidden Tour in Hamburg, Germany. But we're taking trains. We're just in backpacks. So we get into the city. The show's sold out. So it's like in the afternoon, we're like, fuck, man, we got all the way to the city and we're not going to get in here. So we're walking down the street and the band's walking down the street maybe about 5 p.m. and we run into Bobby Rondinelli, who's a fellow New Yorker. Now thinking he's going to go like out of his way to help out some fellow New Jersey, New Yorker guys and be like, yeah, come on, guys, I'll help you out. Useless. He literally looked at us and he said, nothing I can do, guys. Maybe what you want to do is go around back and sweet talk the guy at the back door. That was his answer for us. So to your point, he was probably thinking throw him €20. And we ended up getting in the show anyway. They released tickets in the last minute, but we still laugh at the whole sweet talk the guy in the back door experience, which was really, really funny.
Well, it does work. Well, you have some experience working on the road. You got any old stories from Cannibal Corpse or when you were working with those guys?
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the shows in Tampa, actually, we got done, and and the next day, Metallica was playing in St. Pete, and we had a day off. So Brian Slagle's there, and he goes, "Oh, you guys, I hooked you guys up if you want to go to the show." And we're all like, "Hell yeah, of course we want to go." So we go, and then next thing you know, we're in the Snake Pit. Remember the Snake Pit?
Yep. What tour was this? 92?
No, it was 93. So it was like the third leg where they're doing,
Yeah.
St.
Yeah.
Pete was like an off town or something,
Yeah.
and and it was sold out, a huge crowd. I think there was like 12, 13,000 there, whatever. And we're in the Snake Pit, and dude, there was signs everywhere, no moshing. We're just like, so we're standing there. I got my arms crossed. I'm like, oh man, this is kind of lame. All of a sudden, Newstead comes up and he's jamming and he's looking at us and he's just like, puts his arms up like, what? And I'm like, I go,
Yeah.
and he's like, oh, sorry guys, and he runs away. So
Go ahead, finish.
no, say, and then after they were done jamming, though, he was like, "Oh man, you look totally bored out there." And I was like, "Oh, sorry, dude. I wasn't bored. I just, we couldn't move. I saw a dude get thrown out for headbanging." And he was like, "Really?" Yeah, I was like, "Yeah, some dude was headbanging. They threw him out of there." So
We got a couple
Oh my
Metallica,
God.
Jason Newstead stories. December 1986. I'm going to school up in Toronto. Metallica was playing. It was a rescheduled date. It was actually this third time this gig was rescheduled from Master of Puppets tour. First time James broke his wrist that summer, and then the second time Cliff Burton died. So here it is, December 1986. Newstead was in the band. They did the Japan tour, and then they did those Canadian dates. And I lived right across the street. I lived on the same building as Maple Leaf Gardens, called the Maples, and it was the 19th floor. And right across the street, you look over my balcony. Is the Carlton, which is a ritzy hotel. And I look down there, and you see all Metallica's tour buses, and Metal Church was playing with them. So I go downstairs, start again, the smell of the diesel fuel attracts, fly to a light. So I go down there, and right on the corner was a bank. And Jason Newstead was walking to the bank with his long coat on. And I followed him there, not to be creepy, but let him do his business. And I met him. And Jason, and again, 1986, no cell phones, not even a autograph or anything. But, we knew Jason from Flotsam. We were into Flotsam at the time, Doomsday for the Deceiver. So we knew who, and then obviously. But going back to the Metallica, the Black Album tour, they come to Rochester, and I had a buddy that Tailjammer, friend of the show. His cousin worked at WCMF, the local FM radio station. Hooked me up with Snake Pit tickets, like the day of the show. And I'm like, now, listeners, if you're not familiar, the Snake Pit, Metallica they played in a round, sort of like a diamond. In the middle of the diamond was an open area called the Snake Pit, and you could go in there, and it was a limited area. So I got the tickets. I'm all excited. I'm going to the show. I stopped by my brother's house, and I borrowed the camera from his wife. I said, "You got a camera?" She goes, "Yeah," gives me the camera. I go to the show. There I am taking pictures, thinking I'm Ross Helfand and everything. Killer pictures. After the show, I'm keep taking pictures because I wanted to kill the film. Don't you fucking know there's no film in the camera? Yeah, everyone's like, and I said to my sister-in-law, I'm like, "You gave me a camera with no film." She's like, "JV, I didn't know you didn't have film. I just assumed you got film." And I said, "Well, I just assumed there's." So there was no film, no pictures. But it was a sick show.
God.
It was a real sick show. So that's my Metallica
speaking of pictures, piggybacking on the topic, it's making me think of a time I went to Sweden Rock 2012 and direct from Newark to Copenhagen, Denmark, by myself, mind you. Amazing 3-day festival. Can't even name the bands that were there. There were so many great ones. But Newark being a big hub, I'm looking at the lobby in Newark Airport, and who do I see waiting as we're starting to get boarding is Bobby Liebling from Pentagram. So I go over there and I introduce myself. He's in the airport with an unlit cigarette hanging out of his mouth, his curly gray hair. And I got my camera around my back, like a regular professional camera that I'm going to take and just shoot for fun. And sure enough, he says to me, we don't have a photographer, and just give me all your information. Give me your number and your name and your email address, and I'll put you on the list for the whole 3 days as long as you come to our show and shoot. And I said, deal. So, I'm thinking I'm going to get hooked up there. So we're not even on the flight. And I get on the flight, and there's this rocker-looking dude who's sitting, I'm in the end seat, and he's on the window seat. So I introduced myself, and it ends up being the bass player for Adrenaline Mob, the band that had Mike Portnoy, Russell Allen in there. It was John Moyer. John Moyer has been with Disturbed for the past 20 years. He's in a major band now. But that was so fucking cool because I sat with him for the Sixers flight, and we just shot the shit about music and everything. And to the point where when we landed, he's like, if you want to come with us, you can jump on our van and we'll take you into Salzburg, Sweden. We just, but at the time I already had a train ticket. I had a hotel in another town, and it was really grateful. And I ran into him a couple times, like through the years in New York. And up until then, he remembered me. He's like, Lance, what's up, man? Good to see you again. It was like just from that thing. But to close that story out, of course, I go to the box office when I get there, and there was no pass. There was nothing from Pentagram at all.
Surprise.
And that shouldn't surprise us based on, Bobby being fried. So, what I was thinking too, guys, we put these guys up on pedestals all the time. And Bill, you alluded to the fact that Kerry King may have been a little sarcastic, but you know what? We always have these dreams that we're going to have some amazing conversation with the guys that we worship, but then some of them fall flat. And I'll tell you a couple examples, right? I met Tony Iommi twice, and I wouldn't say that, he was totally cool, but he's a quiet, low-key guy. That's what you see in him in interviews. He's not a big, loud guy. He doesn't, he's subtle. He's a proper, polite British guy. So the both times I met him, it was just that. It was, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. A quick handshake, an autograph, and a picture. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I want to hang out with this guy for the next 3 hours. But you're like, okay, this is just who he is. And the same could be said for even my meeting with Ronnie James Dio. He was nice. He was polite. He referred to me as son. He's like, nice to meet you, son. I'm like, wow, man, he must really think I'm young. But, I wouldn't say that any of these guys were real dickheads, but definitely like you got to realize that they're just people. And I may have been the 75th person they've interacted with over the last 3 hours at this club, so you got to cut them a break as well.
Sure. I don't have any run-ins where people were dicks per se. He wasn't a dick, but he was a little disillusional. I saw David Lee Roth. It was like 2001 at Turning Stone Casino. It was a great tour. It was like one of those casino gigs where it was really weird. They didn't serve booze, but you could bring your own booze in. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was like cabaret seating. So I reserved a table right at the front of the stage. And it was like, this is like awesome. But that's like when I think you had the guitarist from the Atomic Punks, Burr.
Oh yeah, Brian Young.
Yeah, Brian Young. Yeah. But like the band killed it, and Dave killed it. But fast forward to after the show, we're outside the buses again. The smell of the diesel got me to the buses, and there was like maybe like 10 of us outside the bus. And the one on the road said, "Yeah, let Dave catch his breath. He'll be out and everything." So 20 minutes turns into 40, turns into an hour, turns into like an hour and 20 minutes. And now I have to drive home, and we're like, a buck and a half away from home. And I'm like, well, he said he's going to come out, and like, we're all talking. And so finally David Lee Roth comes out, but he started acting like it was outside the Philly Spectrum in 1984. Like there's 300 people there. He comes walking out of the bus. What do we got here? Look at all you guys. There's like 8 of us. It's like Dave, but he was cool. He wasn't a dick. It was just Dave, and a lot shorter than I thought, but he was cool. Bill, share one of your stories. You got many.
All right. Back to Metallica again. 92, they played in Weedsport with Metal Church. Were you at that show? I think it was 4th of July, 1992.
I'm sure I was.
Anyway, Jack Owen, old ex-guitar player from Cannibal Corpse, current with 6 Feet Under. He's like, dude, I got some passes if you want to go. And I was like, yeah, sure. So me, him, and this other dude went, and I'm not going to say his name because he was the culprit. But anyway, we get in. We got there early, probably like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and we get our passes. And next thing you know, we're backstage. We're walking around, and they just had this huge setup out behind the stage, and it was like this big giant tent, and there's couches and chairs and tables. I mean, it was a really nice setup. So all of a sudden, the one dude goes, "Dude, there's James Hetfield." And we look over, and he's reading a newspaper, and he's just like, dude, I gotta go talk to him. And I'm like, no, man. I go, look at him, dude. He's just chilling. Leave him alone. We'll talk to him later. He's like, no, I gotta go talk to him. It's like, all right, suit yourself. So he goes over there, and he's like, dude, I've been into you guys since your first album. I got posters, and I bought all the albums, and blah, blah, blah. And Hetfield literally just keeps looking at his newspaper, sticks his hand out, shakes his hand, and then goes back to reading his newspaper.
Hell,
and that dude's just standing there like all dejected, like, you're not going to say anything? And I pulled him away, like, come on, dude, let's get out of here. So we walk away, and he's all pissed off. He's like, what the fuck? I'm like, dude, you literally just invaded his house. That's his house that he's in right now.
I was gonna ask, were you guys too all access, like you were?
Oh yeah, said
yeah.
all the past set. I might even still have it somewhere. It said all access on it.
No, what I'm getting at is you guys were so far deep in all access that you should have been, not that you personally weren't, but a little more, what's the word, couth about things, a little more.
Yeah, well, that's what I was trying to be. That dude, who I'm not going to say his name, he was the one that was like, come on. And I just like, I knew better. I'm like, look at the guy. He's sitting there relaxing, and you went and bothered him. Yeah. And now you're mad because he didn't acknowledge you.
You said it twice. You're not going to say his name. Is it someone famous, or you just don't want to?
Oh, no. Oh, I don't want to embarrass the dude, because he probably still pissed about it to this day. But no, it wasn't anybody famous. And then later on, after the show, we went and met him again, and he was totally cool. He probably didn't even remember us.
Yeah. I had a chance to again, another radio station hookup. My buddy Matt Raisman, the Razor. I went to college with the Razor. We did radio TV. Big shout out to him. Came around with all access pre-show tickets to the damn Yankees, where we got to go and meet them, hang out with them, and watch the Soundcheck, which was totally cool. And we were Bill, it was at the Auditorium Theater. Walt, nice. Auditorium Theater, maybe a 3,000 seat amphitheater up in town.
Nice place.
And yeah, a really nice place. So we were able to stand right up there, and there's maybe 50 people there. And so they're warming up, and they're playing songs, and then Nugent's like, hey, what do you guys want to hear? And I said, I shouted something out, and they played it, and then he started noodling around, and they were asking questions, and Jack Blades was totally cool. And who was the drummer of that band? Michael Cardellone, I think his name was something like that.
Yeah, Michael Cardellone.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was very cool. That dude's always been cool. And, they ended up, I saw the damn Yankees a lot. Them and Bad Company had those tours all the time. But it was like we got merchandise, they signed stuff. And we got pictures, and here I got a picture right here, and you'll see in this picture that I think I have my Dan Marino jersey on, and it's also Ted's in there, my buddy Steve Kale, and some other radio station winners, if you will. But there was a good time. That was a real cool time. So damn Yankees. I think that was 1992. The Don't Tread
91,
on Me.
90, yeah, 90, 91, 92. That was the only 3 years they ever toured.
Yeah, it was Don't Tread. It was the second album. And what was that like second to last song on the album that Nugent played? Pile Driver.
Yeah, Pile Driver.
Yeah, and I think I said play Pile Driver. Yeah, and it has a killer guitar. So that was a fun one. Lance, what else do you have?
Well, I got to think of like some Spinal Tap moments that happened to me. I could think of 3 of them. So one of them, I probably, you guys know the story of how I got the name Metal Walt, but maybe for our audience, they don't know. So this is kind of a stupid Spinal Tap-ish thing where it's like, fellow, personality DJ Eddie Trunk, who's we all know from Sirius XM and terrestrial radio. At the time in the early 2000s, he would do these like Friday night DJ events where he would go to a local bar in Jersey and just play metal songs from 5 to 8. And at the time, there was no internet or cell phones or anything, maybe. So he would have like these postcards and he would sign them. And I remember going up to him, and because he was a local guy, and asking him to sign it. And I said, I would like to have you sign this photo for my metal wall right around me, my heavy metal man cave, my wall, all the walls of metal and rock memorabilia. So what does he do? Oh, sure, I'll sign that for you. And he writes it out, and I look at it later. It says to Metal Walt, Walt. And from that point on, my forever friends refer to me as Metal Walt. And I've let's say blessed my man cave as the Metal Walt. So I'm Metal Walt, but this is the Metal Walt. It's got multi-purposes. So
that's awesome.
And then I would say a couple other small Spinal Tap moments. Glenn Hughes was playing a private show in New Jersey on a Saturday afternoon in the summer in somebody's house. And you had to know this guy to get on the guest list. And here he is in a suburbia town playing in a backyard at 4:00 in the afternoon, full open bar. Everybody's drinking and wasted. I'm up there. And he's playing like solo songs, but he's also doing a lot of stuff like Stevie Wonder, classic rock covers, stuff like he likes to do. And we start shouting out every song title from the Black Sabbath's 7 Star album, right down the line to try to heckle him to see if he's going to get a reaction. And the blues track on the album, Heart Like a Wheel, we're going, Heart Like a Wheel. Come on, Glenn, play Heart Like a Wheel. And what does he look up and he says, do I ever request in the audience for some Captain and Tennille? Certainly I'll play some Captain and Tennille for you. And he just like totally blew it off. Totally blew it off. And then,
Well, the awesome part of that story is the fact that you're at like some backyard barbecue with Glenn Hughes.
And this guy that ran it ended up becoming his roadie. I don't know what was going on there. I don't want to ask. It just seemed like a very expensive proposition to have this guy come to his house, fly his whole band in every summer to play a 2-hour show on a Saturday afternoon. But my final story on the Spinal Tap category, we'll call it, and I know, Bill, you would appreciate this one. There's an underground band that came out around 1989 called World War III. It was Jimmy Bain, Vinny Appice, and Mandy Lion was the singer. They only ever put out one album. But I always liked Mandy's vocals. He had an early Rob Zombie feel, and I always felt he was an underground artist. And he never played it out. So fast forward 20 years, he's doing a one-off show at some little bar on Father's Day night in Connecticut, which is about an hour and 20-minute ride. So, of course, I drive there. And guess what happens? I meet them outside. I'm talking to him. He's signing a bunch of stuff, photos. So I go in to watch the show. It's me. I just went by myself. And I'm the only person in the crowd. Literally, nobody else came to see the show. It was the band and me. So what does he do? They play the show. And the signature song from that album, Time for Terror, was the single. He calls me up and says, all right, come on up here. You're going to sing the chorus for me. And I'm like, what? So I'm not impressing anybody because there's nobody here but the war staff. But I actually got up on stage and did it's time for terror, time for terror. And, I got my bootleg recorder over there, so I got a recording of it. But, it's like, oh my God, it was like cool, yet like there was nobody there to witness it.
Yeah. That reminds me, going to school up in Toronto. It was March 1987, and I had some buddies up because Iron Maiden was playing 2 nights at the Toronto Maple Leaf Gardens for Somewhere in Time. So all my buddies are up, and they were playing Saturday night and Sunday night at Maple Leaf Gardens. So Friday night, Anvil was playing the Gasworks. And we were big Anvil fans because back, we got into Anvil in 82, Metal on Metal. And shit, Bill, didn't you see them like in 82? Didn't you sneak into
83? 83, yeah. It was on the Forge and Fire.
Yeah. So, we're in Anvil's Canadian, and I was going to school in Toronto for recording arts. I was in studio recording. So one of my classmates, Sal Audia of the band Kraken, they were a Canadian band. He was good friends with Lips and Rob Reiner from Anvil. So when I had Sal set it up to have me introduce the band before they went on to go up on stage. And so we're in the Gasworks, and it was weird because another one of these cabaret table gigs where you're actually sitting at a table. And so so Sal gets me. He's like, we had the cue. So I said to my buddies, I'm going to take a leak before the band comes on. So I go backstage. And so all of a sudden I go up on stage, and I'll never forget the look of my buddies looking at me as I come up on stage. And I'm like, all right, Gasworks, are you ready for Anvil? The March of the Crabs. And they break into the March of the Crabs. Wow. And yeah. And so they're like, what the fuck, man? That was wild. And so it's sort of like I got to introduce them, but yeah,
it's big stuff, John. That's big stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Wild. I have two more. I have 2 more stories. I'm gonna end with the big one, but we're talking about meeting celebrities. It was God, I would have to say one of the last years that Thurman Thomas was on the Buffalo Bills, and at the time, and they are now, Buffalo had pivoted their training camp to St. John Fisher here in Rochester, the local university. And so professionally, I owned street vending hot dog carts. And so we would set a few up down in the bar district of Rochester. And at this particular location I was working at, Thurman Thomas was in the bar partying. He comes out, he's all hammered, leaning against the building right next to me, like right next to me, smoking a cigarette, being all boozy. And, I'm working. Yeah, I'm a Miami Dolphin fan, but I could respect Thurman Thomas because, he's a Hall of Famer and the dude was nails. But I'm busy, I'm doing stuff, it was a busy operation. So I said to Thurman, once I got a little break, I'm like, hey, Thurman, you want something to eat? And guys, he says that he's like, oh man, I'm in training, man. I can't be eating that kind of stuff. We're in summer camp. While he's fucking hammered, smoking like a Marlboro or something, leaning against the building. So, you never, the more you're around people, it never stops to amaze you what you'll run into. But Bill, let me give the mic to you. You got any more you want to share with us?
I got a random one that happened to me one time. I was at an outdoor show in Tampa. It was called Livestock. They used to do it every spring or summer, and it was literally in a cow pasture. So that's why they called it Livestock. And it was 1997, and Motley Crue was the headliner. And I got in free through Cannibal Corpse or something. And we're backstage, and I think Motley Crue was about to go on. So I'm standing back there like this watching, and all of a sudden I turn to my left, and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa. And then this chick, it was Pamela Anderson, and she looks at me and she goes, whoa. And we just laughed, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I just was surprised to see you standing there. She goes, yeah, sometimes I surprise myself too. And she was actually funny as hell. She was super cool, and we just said hello, and that was it. And unfortunately, I didn't have a camera. I didn't have a pen on me or nothing, because I would have loved to have gotten a picture with her. And honestly, in person, she looked way more human than you see her on TV or in pictures or whatever. She wasn't all done up. She just looked kind of regular or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Well, she doesn't do any of that now. Now she doesn't use any makeup. That's her big
right.
thing. It's her big
But
thing.
back then, she did, whenever you saw her on TV or in a magazine, she's all done up.
Yeah.
And not that day, she was just normal. But that's when she was married to that douchebag Tommy Lee.
Yeah. Well, you want to share one last one, and then we're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, so I want to share my celebrity running outside of the music in a second, but I want to give some credit to Metal Mayhem ROC because John and Bill, this one we do meet these guys that we interview, and like I said at the top of the hour, there are times where we've had occasions to discuss and have casual time with these guys off air, right? And I think of some of the good guys that we've met. Bobby Blitz from Overkill, hanging outside Giant Stadium at MetLife before the Metallica show at the gate. John, you're really good friends with John and Mark Gallagher from Raven. I've gotten to know those guys a little bit through you. They're genuinely good people. When you go up to them, you hug them, you shake their hands. It feels like they're almost like your family now, which it goes much further than just promoting the latest album. But, I think of like over the last couple of years, this past year, getting on the guest list for Saxon and Uriah Heep to do show coverage. Yet here I am with my friend Mark, partying on the tour bus from 11 o'clock to 1:30 in the morning, drinking. Like I had to hold it in because I had to drive home. But like Bifford was holding court. It was like one of the coolest fucking moments in my life, let alone just it was Saxon. Or you think about the Metal Allegiance show that we covered, John, and here I am backstage pre-show, and John Bush comes in, and he's got a Slapshot, the hockey movie sweatshirt on. And, like, we didn't talk Anthrax. We didn't talk, Armored Saint. We talked our favorite Slapshot characters. And I was telling him, well, I got a Reggie Dunlop jersey. And he's like, but Dave Killer Carlson is the best guy in the movie, Walt. So now we're debating Slapshot, so these are the fun things that have come out of it, with Damian Colati going to Riot guitarist Rick Ventura's house about a year ago and going to his basement to film a little clip. Yet we're drinking. His wife is buying a sushi. We're hanging out till 11 at night in his house. He's playing riffs, unreleased songs. I'm like, this is just fucking cool. So it does. The show comes with some perks sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're right. And to expand on that, one of the first times Walt and I really hung out together, and Bill, you were there when we did the Raven trip down to New Jersey. And when the Raven on the Metal City tour was playing Dingbats. And so this was at the infant stage of our relationship. Well, Walt and I, but really with the Gallagher brothers. And we interviewed them on the bus, but then they were so like mesmerized with the poster that we had. We went down to the local what was it, Staples, and had another poster made. And then we went back and had them sign it, and it was like another section of time hanging out with them. It was just cool. It was really, really good time. So
it's just a matter of just good people.
They're just good, down to earth dudes,
And I think that times this is what makes this job cool for all of us, right? It's we love talking to the guys that maybe we loved growing up and we love now, and we want to help promote their product. But at the end of the day, it's about connecting on the personal level. And we've done so much of that with some of these guys, and that just takes on a special meaning to all of us.
We're going to end the show with Walt's encounter with an artist, if you will. But Bill, do you have anything you want to contribute before we say goodbye?
Just that, I guess I'm lucky that through the years that I have met the people that I have, mostly because just being into music, we've gotten lucky and been in the right place, the right time. And, I mean, were all the encounters great? No, but at the same time, I realized what it was, like the one with Hetfield. I wasn't mad at all. It was the other guy that was, but it's been a good life, man. We've definitely had a good life.
All I want to say is we've just touched on these. All of us have more, and we'll be back with another episode of Meeting Your Rock Stars. But we're going to end this episode with my co-host and buddy Metal Walt's going to share a really cool story. What do you got, Walt?
Well, this is my my non-music pick, but I've met a lot of sports guys too. I love the Thurman Thomas story. I'm going to camp on to the Pamela Anderson category and slide over to this side. So I was out for a company I was working for at the time in Vegas at a show, the Consumer Electronics Show. And as we're walking back on the strip to the hotel, I'm with this guy, Lou, in my company. We look at the hotel right next to us, and it says, oh, it's the, International Adult Movie, Expo. And we're like, what is this? So it's 4 PM. We got 3 hours to kill before dinner. So we go over there. You hear music pumping. So we throw the guy $20 at the door. He lets us walk in. And it was really just all X-rated artists promoting their product. They weren't nude or anything, but, they're selling their posters and their DVDs and shit like that, just like any other show. But where it led to was, from the corner of my eye, I see this table with this giant banner for Viagra. And this was when Viagra first got approved by the FDA. And I'm like, wow, this is big news here. So I look over at the table, and who's promoting Viagra but X-rated movie star Ron Jeremy. So, of course, I go up to Ron Jeremy and I introduce myself. He's giving out photos. He signs them. It's hanging up over on my wall there. And what was his motto that he signed? Dear Walt, air quotes, keep it up, exclamation point, Ron Jeremy.
Oh, God. The hedgehog. Do you look like a hedgehog in person?
I mean, Viagra, keep it up, X-rated film festival. What else could it? The perfect storm, guys.
All right. Well, that's what we have tonight. That's what we have tonight. The first edition of Meeting Your Rock Stars and Porn Stars. We got to add to the title. So we'll be back later in the summer with another edition. Just want to remind you, get up to the website, metalmayhemroc.com. Sign up for the newsletter, get updates on everything we're doing here, and come back and, subscribe to the pod, leave a review. For my co-host, Metal Walt, and our show contributor, Bill the Rager, I'm the Vernomatic, and we are Metal Mayhem ROC.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.